Welcome to the Cheer Up Podcast. I'm the host, Kara Hunt, and with me is speaker and author Sherry Swalwell. How are you doing this morning, Sherry?
I am doing great. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. I must have had enough sleep last night. I've got a great cup of coffee, and I have a fabulous friend to talk to. What more could I ask for?
Oh, I know. Isn't it such an awesome morning? And what makes it even more exciting is that we get to pick up from last week's episode, which was the first episode in our summer reading series. And in that episode, we introduced you to Holly of the Redemption of Green Pine series, and that was book number 1. And it's called Adventure's Invitation by our very own author, in-house author, Sherry Swalwell. And in that book, she kind of gave the history behind the book, what led her into her fiction writing, and she talked about the book. And please go back and listen to that previous podcast if you want to know all about her history of writing, how she got into writing, her love of writing, and if you want to know more about book 1. The Redemption of Green Pie series. But this morning we're going to talk about book 2 in the Redemption of Green Pine series, which is called Journey Back Home. It is, okay, well, I'll let Sherry start. Okay, Sherry, tell us about Journey Back Home.
Thank you so much, Kara. I am so excited to get to share with you guys today, and it's not so much because I wrote the book, but it's because the characters inside the book are my friends. I know that sounds kind of silly, but they have just become such a part of me that I love spending time with them. I love spending time with my real friends, real people, but I love being able to introduce the fiction world that I live in with the real world that I live in. So Journey Back Home is all about Jason Simone, and it was written during a time in my life when I was really I thought that I was overstressed. I thought that I had so many ovens in the fire, and so I could just really relate to Simone's character because she's a second-grade teacher. Her husband is a youth pastor at a mega church, quote unquote. It started out as a smaller church, and it keeps growing. So he's growing with it. He has growing pains, and he's growing with it. So she's a second-grade teacher. She's a pastor's wife, and they have 4 kids. Now, the book itself is written a little bit differently, and I did this on because, God just kind of helps me think outside the box. Like, I'm one of those people who doesn't necessarily always order the same thing at a restaurant. I'm the kind of person who likes to mix things up a little bit here and there. And so the way that I wrote the book was it's told present day, but then it's also told through the eyes of Simone's journal. So you get to glimpse not only into their past and into like the previous year they went through, but you get to glimpse into her heart. Simone is French. Simone is shy. Simone is quiet. Simone is, she doesn't really show her feelings or reveal her feelings, even to her husband, very well. She has a really hard time explaining herself, putting herself out there. She has a low self-esteem. She doesn't think too highly of herself, and she's so busy taking care of other people that she forgets to take care of her own self. So that's kind of who Simone is in a nutshell. So you really get to hear the heart of Simone through her diary. Because she doesn't share too often with other people. She doesn't really have any close friends. Her husband is her closest confidant, but like I said, she doesn't even really share with him too much either. And then you have Jace. He's outgoing. He's the life of the party. He's the grown-up who never grew up. He's the youth pastor, the main youth pastor at the church, and he happens to work with his best friend, Paul. And they handle both the middle school and the high school together. And so he loves to be busy. He loves to be doing things. He loves to be involved in many, many, many things. And that's kind of what's gotten them in trouble. they started out with a really good marriage. When they first got married, they both wanted to do ministry together. They were a team. They worked well together. They played volleyball together. They did everything together. And then as the years went on, and as their family grew from just the two of them to now 4 kids, all under the age of 10, Simone has kind of had to take the back seat, and she's kind of had to step up and be the parent in the home. And Jace just never kind of caught up. He just always kind of stayed the grown-up kid. And so you start to see that their marriage isn't as strong and isn't as good as it was when they first started. So the harried part and the overworked and stressed and pulled in too many different directions, that's the way that I could relate to Simone. The marriage part was not. So this is a fiction book. I like to make sure that I repeat that often. The people in the book are fiction. The people in the book, it's not fun and it's not entertaining if it isn't outlandish, if it isn't, if there isn't some drama and there isn't some stuff to, draw you into the book. So please believe me, people, these characters are fiction characters. They're fun. They're my friends, but they are fully fiction. So, but the book itself deals with a dilemma. I don't know if dilemma is the right word, but a situation that people find themselves in very often, where life gets really, really busy, and marriages and people could tend to drift apart if you aren't intentional about staying together, if you aren't intentional about making that time together, continuing that teamwork, even if it has to look different in one season than it did in another season. And again, this book, spoiler alert, there is a catastrophic event. I don't want to spoil it too much. Just know that every book I write does not have the same theme. So book 3 and book 4 have very different themes than book 1 and book 2. But it had to kind of come across this way, and it had to kind of develop this way in order for the characters to become who the characters were going to become. And I was talking last week about how Holly ended up becoming a very pivotal part. And the reason is because the things that she experienced and went through in her life in book 1 then helped her to be able to help Jace and his family in book 2. And I think that's why, isn't that what the Christian life is all about? Isn't that what God calls us to? Where it says in Romans 8:28 that all things work together for good to those who love them and love him and are called according to his purpose. God can take the tragedies that happen in our lives, the things that knock us down and the enemy tries to knock us out with. And when God heals us, then we in turn have an obligation, really, a responsibility to in turn then mentor others and come alongside others and walk alongside others who are going through what we have come through. And that's kind of the thing with Holly. So she comes alongside and she helps Jace and his family get through the catastrophic event that they end up having to face together. And there's humor in this one too. There's 4 children, like I said. There's Noah, Chloe, Logan, and Olivia, and they all have their own quirks. They all have their own distinct personalities, and they were just really fun to write, really fun. In fact, I think it's the 3rd chapter in. There's a lot of humor put into that scene, and some of that is true. Some of that really did happen in real life to me. So if you read the book and you get to chapter 3 or the chapter that you see that something funny happened, feel free to write to me and ask me, is that what it was that happened to you? And I will let you know. So, but you have to read it in order to find out what I'm talking about. So it was a really, it was the book that I was able to write the fastest because I think at that point in my life, I could just relate. I had younger kids at home. I was pulled in a lot of different directions. But yet the story itself is still very fiction. My husband is not Jace. My husband is amazing. Jace kind of needed to have somebody knock him upside his head, which does happen in the book, not literally, but you'll have to read it to find out. So the Jace at the beginning is not the Jace at the end, and it's just a really, really, it's a book about redemption. It's a book about keeping your priorities and keeping intentional about life and keeping God first. And yeah, I really fell in love with everybody in this book, and then that is how I ended up turning it into a 6-book series instead of it just being a standalone.
Yeah, and I think some of my favorite parts of the book is, and like I mentioned in a previous episode, I, was able to get, what do they call it, like a beta copy, of the book or whatnot, a proof. And so I was able to read it before it was actually published. But it's okay. When you said someone needed to smack Jace, I was that person who wanted to smack him. I really, really was.
Good, because that's what people are supposed to want to do.
I know, and which lets the listeners know that you wrote him as a very, very good character that wanted to be slapped. So I just really wanted to slap him because here his wife Simone is with all of these things going on. And at times, not only was she a school teacher, not only was she involved at the church, but she also had 4 kids to take care of. And then she had to also take care of her grown but young husband, So sometimes she was father and mother and teacher and youth pastor and caregiver and doing it all. Because not only was she dealing with a husband who, let's just say, refused to kind of grow up and handle the responsibilities of a husband and father, she was also just having to deal with, those at the youth the youth ministry, and in parenting and doing all of this stuff and being so rushed and just trying to get all of these things done. So she was wearing so many hats, and because her husband was also like an absentee father, basically.
Right.
And even though he was doing a good thing, he wasn't at home and making his family a priority. So everything would fall on Simone. And so there was many times I'm just like, just Simone, you need to just grab him and say, look, you're not going anywhere. You're going to stay here. You're going to help. But her softness and her humility, and the one thing that I love about it is that when I couldn't necessarily understand why she wasn't more forceful with Jace, then I would come across her journal entries and why she was doing what she was doing and why she was, taking this particular approach instead of that type of approach, and why she was thinking what she was thinking, why she was feeling what she was feeling. And then that gave you that much more depth of an insight into why she was, handling things the way that she was. And that was very, very insightful. And it was very well done and very well written. And so you get to see her side of it. As well as Jay's side of it a little bit, but you really get to see her side of it and how she's looking at things and everything from her perspective, from her journal entries. So, but you're right. They all have distinct personalities, and the kids are a hoot, and the kids are a hoot. But it also shows you, I want to go back to what you were talking about, being intentional when it comes to marriage. And it starts off great, and you're in the honeymoon phase, and you're like, I am just going to love this person forever, and your head's in the clouds because your heart's in the clouds, and you're walking on clouds, right? Because everything is just so lovey-dovey, and you think it's going to be that way forever. Well, then life happens, and kids come along, and jobs, and careers, and ministries, and sometimes in-laws and ex-laws, you know,
Right,
and
right.
you get all of these things that end up coming into the mix. And before you know it, if you're not intentional and if you're not constantly putting your marriage at the forefront, it's like a slow fade.
Yes.
It's a very, very slow fade where you've gone from becoming that hand-holding, loving couple, finishing each other words and thoughts, and just being really lovey-dovey, until you just kind of start drifting apart. Not just mentally, not just emotionally, but as it's pointed out in Journey Back Home, you pull away physically sometimes. He was doing a good thing, but he wasn't at home. He wasn't there. He wasn't physically there. Sometimes, you know, and okay, I don't want to do any spoilers, so I'm going to be careful what I say next, but he just wasn't physically there, and especially at times when she needed him to be there. He wasn't there. And so physically, you know, it comes, and at first you're like, you know, it's such a slow fade, because at first in marriages, you know, you're like, oh, well, you know, he's working a lot or something like that. So, you know, just one night a week or 2 nights a week isn't a big deal. Then those 1 and 2 nights become 3 or 4 nights. And then 3 or 4 nights turn into 7. And you're realizing that, you know, you're hardly getting to see your spouse anymore. You know, and it's just like a slow fade. And at first you're hurt and you're like, oh, my goodness, I wish we could spend more time together. And they're probably saying the same thing. But then as you continue on, you realize you don't miss them as much. You've kind of started a whole new routine, a life inside your house, inside your marriage, but without them. And it becomes
I love how you point that out. I love how you point that out.
Because it happens so slowly. You don't even really begin to recognize it. It just happens very, very slowly. And so it is so important that in your marriage you just constantly feel like, okay, I need to be intentional. And I'm not just talking about people who've been married from like 1 to 5 years. I'm talking about if you've been married forever, how long?
Right.
Even if you've been married for 50 years, you always got to remember to be intentional about your family and about your spouse, and don't take them for granted. And if you're working a lot or volunteering a lot, or something's keeping you away from your family and your spouse isn't complaining about it anymore, that should concern you.
Exactly. It goes back to what we were talking. Well, it goes back to what we were talking about in the relationship aspect, or in the relationship episodes we talked about back in February, where you can either be proactive or reactive. You can either be offensive or defensive. I would rather work hard offensively to keep the problems out than to have to work defensively to fix the problems that I've allowed in.
Absolutely. And besides, when you do it offensively, that is going to eliminate the enemy getting a foothold in your marriage.
And it's fun. Like, how fun is it to intentionally have fun with your spouse, or have fun with your family, or have fun, you know, making memories? And I used to do it really well when our kids were younger, but my husband's amazing at it. Like, he does a fantastic job of being intentional and coming up with things for our family to do. Memory making, whether it's just him and I together or whether it's with the kids. And I love that. Like, I love that we have that, because that's what keeps, if you aren't friends first.
Yes.
Exactly.
You need to be friends first and friends always.
Exactly. That strong,
and friends always.
Yes. That strong element of friendship is what's going to get you through the ER visits, the miscarriages, the job issues, the financial fluctuations, the all of it, the colic, the late nights, whether it's when they're newborns or whether it's when they're teenagers and you're waiting for them to come home. All of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what gets you through, and that's what makes life fun. And life should be fun. Like, I'm not saying it has to be a party 24/7, but we should wake up filled with joy with the day ahead and not dread.
And joy with the person you're sharing your days with.
Exactly.
And joy, and not dreading going, oh, my goodness, he's here, she's here. They're about to come home. They're, you don't want the person who you're spending your life with to dread you being there. You want them to be, you know how kids are, like when one of the parents come home from work and they haven't seen them all day, or they've been away for a long time, and the younger ones are like, mommy, daddy, it's like, because they're just so excited to see you. Now, obviously, as husband and wives, we're not going to, meet them at the door going, hubby, wifey.
Maybe we're not that, Kara. Maybe we should try that and see what happens.
Right? See the reaction.
But in all
reaction we get.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, I think we need to be intentional about not greeting our husband or wife, well, in our case, our husband, at the door saying, okay, honey, I need you to fix this. Okay, honey, this went wrong today. Okay, honey, we need gas. We need milk. Did you remember to bring the grapes with the strawberries? Or did you forget? We need to be intentional with how we greet them and we start our evening too. So while it's funny, it's not funny. Like, it sets the tone for the whole night.
Right. And even something as simple as, let me tell you what your daughter did today.
Yeah.
Right?
When you use that your phrase, you know it's bad.
You know it's bad, right? It's not our son, our daughter, it's your daughter.
Right. And everybody, whether it's him saying it to you or you saying it to him, you pick up on that pronoun.
Yes, you do. You pick up on it, and you're like, oh, my goodness, I just had a hard day at work, and here we, And I'm saying that nothing's wrong with that, because as moms or as dads or whatever, you want to share that with your spouse and say, that you had a tough day too. But there's a time and a place.
Exactly.
Is all I'm saying. And usually greeting them at the door with something like that is just not probably the best way to do it. So it wasn't like what Jace was doing was wrong, but it was what he had neglected to do. And that was include his wife in his thoughts and his actions. So if he had to be away, if the new job or the ministry was taking a lot of his time and you knew she needed you at home, make a phone call, text. Now there's video calling. You can send flowers to your spouse if you're away from them. There are just so many different things that you can do to let them know that you're still a priority, you're still important. I know I got to do this thing, but I just want you to know that I am here, I am thinking about you, and, oh, by the way, check the refrigerator. I left something special there for you.
Exactly.
Okay? Right. And you're going to bed because you're already fussing, and you probably had to put the kids to bed, and you're like, oh, my goodness, where is he, or whatnot. And you're angry, you're ready to go to bed, but you're frustrated because you wanted help, you needed help, and the person that's supposed to help you isn't there. But how amazing would it be for you to go in and you see a note like that on your pillow, and then it's like, oh, check the refrigerator, or check the front porch, or, check the deck, wherever, check upstairs. I don't care. I just left something for you. Maybe this will help your night or your day go a little bit easier, or help you relax, or just something. There's so many things that you can do, because I do know that a lot of jobs require a person to be gone a long time, or at the worst times, let me put it that way. There are those type of things. And at times, there are times in your family where you have to make those sacrifices. So we totally get it. It's just that while you're doing that, you don't forget your spouse.
Exactly.
You don't
like you
forget
said,
them.
There's so many ways nowadays to include them.
There's so many ways to include them. I'm not necessarily a fan of technology, but technology has really made it super easy to be able to do things like that. And you can always go old school, like I said, pen, paper, letter.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And it doesn't take, you don't have to write a whole big love letter. Sometimes just a heart with a I love you works. I mean,
absolutely.
Yep.
Yep, just a heart, just a I love you, just a I'm thinking about you, or something like that. And so there's just these different little things that you could do. And if you know that the kids may be more troublesome in the evening and that one spouse is going to be there with them, you can leave letters for the kids too. And just like, sorry, I can't be there this evening to touch you guys in or whatnot, but, show some grace, have some mercy on mom and or dad, and because, they've worked really hard today, something like that. And just, be kind to your siblings, try not to fight, I'll come in and make sure I kiss you when I get in. Just something simple like that,
Exactly.
Each one has their own individual letter, note, text, phone call. I mean, just whatever works for you and that particular kid, and or something like that. And so then that way everyone has their own little, oh, I heard from Dad today. Oh, I got a letter from him. Did you get one? Oh, yeah, I did too. It's like, but it's so individualized.
Exactly.
And everything. So it's like, you can't be there. That they tend to be a little bit more raucous in the evenings, right before bath time and bedtime. And you just, before you leave, you just like write out these little quick notes. Like Sherry said, they do not have to be very long and drawn out and 10 to 12 pages, unless that's just you and you're great at that. And you can whip those out in no time, But sometimes it's just something quick and uplifting and encouraging and something like that to just let them know they haven't been forgotten about, that they're still a priority. And when kids get something special like that, they pay attention. Sometimes it's even better than you calling them on the phone and saying, now you behave, okay?
Right.
Yeah, it could be a lot more effective than that, so because they feel like, you've actually taken the time to do this, and that's special to them. And those are just some of the ways. And I think that's what, when you read Journey Back Home, you'll see how Jace was doing a good thing. The ministry was demanding a lot of his time, but he was just neglectful. And that slow fade turns into a whole other thing. And you guys have got to read Journey Back Home, Book 2.
Well, I have to tell you, so do you know how much we love music, Kara? And do you remember that song from 10 years ago, Thanks It's Real, Lead Me? Do you remember that song?
Yes. Oh, my goodness, yes, I love that song.
Well, that song is what started this book. Like, that song was what God used to develop this book in my head. And if you listen, or if you, like at the end of chapter 2 or chapter 3, when Simone turns on the radio, I don't say it by name, but that's the song she's listening to. That's what her heart is crying out for Jace to be in their family, and she doesn't know how to tell him.
See, and if you guys did not hear that, that was Lead Me. The name of the song is called Lead Me, and the name of the group who recorded the song is called Sanctus Real, Sanctus. And I think it was Reel. Am I right, Sherry? It wasn't Real.
Real.
Oh, it was Real. Okay, Sanctus Real. And what an amazing and life-changing song. So we just want to put a plug in there. Again, the song is not new. It's about a decade old. But, yes, it is. If you listen to that song and after you read or before you read or while you're reading Journey Back Home, it brings it all to light.
Absolutely. And then the verse that I had to go with Journey Back Home was, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here. 2 Corinthians 5:17. And the reason I picked that was because we all have a chance to do over. Nobody is ever so far gone that that God can't come in and rescue us and take us from the old patterns and the old life that we had and change us and make us into the new pattern and what he wants us to become. God has a purpose and a plan for every single one of us, and he's just waiting for us to get out of the way so that he can do what only he can do. So while it looks like Jace, like Kara said, Jace had good intentions, he kind of got off the path. But he wasn't forgotten. He wasn't forgotten. He wasn't tossed out in the trash. He wasn't, past the prime. God takes us wherever we are on our path. Maybe we started out strong and we went and we swerved to the left or swerved to the right. That's okay. God loves us so much. All we have to do is repent, ask for forgiveness, come back on the track where he wants us to be, and he'll pick us right back up. And when God restores and redeems people, he does it double. Like, he doesn't bring us back to the baseline of where we were when we started before we got off track. He takes us beyond. People, there is so much hope when we have a relationship with God. Friends, I just want to make sure that you understand that no matter where you are never far enough gone that God has said, forget it. He never washes his hands of us. He loves us so much. And that's the other underlying theme of Journey Back Home, that God loves us so much, he'll bring us back home. He wants us to come back home, and back home is with him. So I would love for you to go over and check out Kara's website, KARARHUNT.com. I'd love for you to come check out my website, SherrySwalwell.com, CHERISWALWELL.com. You can check out the books that I have. You can also sign up and invite me to come be a speaker, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's in person. If you need prayer or encouragement or want to talk to us about anything, email us at cheeruppodcast@gmail.com. And please come join us over on our Facebook group, Cheer Up Podcast. We have had so much fun with you today. Next week, we're going to be talking about Trail to Forgiveness, Book 3. So if you've already read Adventure's Invitation and Journey Back Home, I want to encourage you to read Trail to Forgiveness this week so that when we talk about it next week, you'll be able to comment about the parts that you liked the best and what was your favorite and what wasn't your favorite. So we cannot wait to talk to you next week. And again, John 16:33, it always comes back to and boils down to Jesus' words in this beautiful, beautiful verse. These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. No matter what the world throws at you, God will give us peace. In this world we will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. Jesus has overcome the world. We will see you guys next week. We're glad that you were here today, and we cannot wait to talk to you again and pick up with Book 3 in a week from now. Talk to you later.